Surfing? I don't want to go surfing. Come on, Brian. Let's go surfing now.
Everybody's learning how.
Thank God it's Friday!
Drop it like we should drop Israel as an ally. All right, TYT Power Panel here, guys. Cenk, Maz Jobrani, and John Iadarola with you guys. John, of course, the host of Damage Report. Maz is on Rebel Headquarters. So obviously, guys, Grave show today. We have war, and we are going to talk about that. Maz's family originally from Iran. Obviously, he's going to have some thoughts on it. And we're going to give you some of the devastating details and how we're going to get drawn into this war, how we're already getting drawn into this war. A very important one is how Donald Trump got suckered by Netanyahu into doing this. P-Brain, we're going to explain that in a little bit. In the second hour, some of MAGA's mad about this. We'll see if that has an effect or not. But right now, Israel and Iran are in full out war. And the US, of course, is on Israel's side and getting drawn in by the second. And right now, there are conservative hosts like Mark Levin rooting for US soldiers to get hit. He says, no, golly gee, I hope they better not hit any of them. But if they do, then America's gonna have to fight Israel's war for it, which is, of course, always the plan. So, having said that, let's get to the top story, which is obviously about the war.
All this naysaying from Cenk. I'm just happy for once to be living in a world where, thanks to Trump, there's peace and stability.
Yeah.
Which he promised and delivered. Anyway, let's talk about the big story.
Overnight, Israel carrying out a major attack inside Iran, aimed at crippling its nuclear program and preventing Iran from building a nuclear bomb. Multiple waves of strikes throughout the night across multiple cities, hitting nuclear enrichment facilities and ballistic missile centers. Multiple residential buildings engulfed in flames in Iran's capital.
When enemies build weapons of mass death, stop them. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat.
I'm assuming that does not count for America and Israel, which also have weapons of mass death, but just for Iran. In any event, we're all now, whether we like it or not, and I think most people watching this probably won't, a whole lot closer to all-out war in the Middle East thanks to Israel launching its massive preemptive attack on Iran, what we would call, if it were any other country, the initiation of a war. If it's the United States and Israel, you could just do this sort of thing, and it's just a strategy. It's just cool. Everybody quiet down about it. But it is big, objectively. Iran has not been hit like this since the 1980s. There have been more limited strikes inside of Iranian territory earlier this year from Israel, but this really does stand out. And bear in mind, it happened right before what were supposed to be, hopefully, fruitful conversations between the United States and Iran this weekend to try to establish some sort of nuclear deal between our two countries. That deal being necessary because Donald Trump tore up the previous deal in his first term because he had not negotiated it, thus necessitating a new one and also raising fears about the possibility that they could be developing nuclear weapons. Bear in mind, we didn't have inspectors on the ground because Donald Trump destroyed the previous deal. But this operation, which they're calling Rising Lion, very cool, no notes, very cool. It involved heavy airstrikes against some of Iran's main uranium enrichment sites, strikes inside of the capital as well as in other cities. They were designed to take out the military leadership, and they were quite successful in doing that. In total, over 100 targets were hit, more than 200 jets were used, as well as drones and precision weapons that had been smuggled into Iran and had been stored there by the Israeli spy agency Mossad, indicating that they apparently have a quite robust operation inside of Iranian territory. And it does appear that there's been some success, although not necessarily exactly what might have been hoped from this attack. The command center and centrifuges at one of Iran's main uranium enrichment sites, that's Natanz, are likely to have been destroyed. They didn't hit the most likely repository of the closest to bomb-grade nuclear fuel that Iran possesses. But in addition to infrastructure, which was destroyed, there were also Iranian leaders. So you have the literal head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, the top military official inside of Iran, was killed last night. The chief of staff of Iran's armed forces, a major aide to the Ayatollah, as well as the person who was in charge of the nuclear negotiations with the United States, will not be participating this weekend because he was killed. And the commander of the IRGC's Air Force as well. In addition to the military and I guess aides that were killed, there were also dozens of civilians. Of course, these are widespread airstrikes. Hundreds of others were injured. Multiple nuclear scientists were killed. You see two right there. A spokesperson for the IDF is claiming that at least 9 nuclear scientists were killed. And yeah, so look, there's a lot. It's a developing situation. Iran launched a very limited counterattack that in the immediate aftermath of it, that I don't believe any of the drones they launched actually made it through to Israel. They have launched missiles more recently prior to us going live. Some of those appear to have struck inside of Tel Aviv. I believe there are reports of injuries, at least as of when we were going live. I had not seen any confirmations of any fatalities as a result of that. But it's a developing situation. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that this is just the beginning. They're going to continue. And as you'll see, Trump is promising more of that as well. But Cenk, a lot going on, history being made.
Yep, so let me start on media and propaganda, and then I want to get to the most important part, which is how Trump got suckered into this war because he's an idiot. And I will explain and you will agree. Whether you're left or right, it's super obvious. So first off, on the media, and look, we fall into this sometimes as well. So they attacked their nuclear program. They also attacked in the middle of Tehran, their capital city. So the way that the press is framing it as like, it was a preemptive attack on their nuclear program. No, they dropped tons of bombs in the middle of Tehran, one of the most crowded cities in the world, right? But you haven't heard anything about their civilian deaths. You haven't heard anything about any of that because, of course, they're Iranians, not Israelis, so their lives don't matter. So, but the minute Iran started attacking back, they're like, oh my God, injuries in Tel Aviv, injuries. Oh, you have to go in there and help Israel fight this war instead of Israel. That's what the propaganda is driving towards, okay? So John's right about the piece of propaganda of, these weapons of mass death cannot be allowed to happen. That you must attack a country, especially in the Middle East, if they're gonna develop nuclear weapons. Under that ideology, we would have wiped out Israel. Israel has nukes. They don't, and by the way, part of this is not just about, we're so worried Iran's gonna hit us. I'm gonna tell you why that's ridiculous in a second. No, it's that they don't wanna lose leverage. If anyone else has nukes in the Middle East, then Israel is constrained. They don't want to be constrained. They want to attack Syria, they want to attack Lebanon, they want to keep Gaza and the West Bank, they want to attack Iran, and they don't want to be constrained. If anybody else is anywhere near parity, they might be slightly constrained from setting up greater Israel. So later they will all pretend that Israel was the victims, not later, they're doing it today. And they're gonna do it from here till eternity. Mainstream media is gonna lie to you about how, oh my God, poor Israel. What could they do? Now this next slide. They went after, they were about to get a nuclear bomb. You heard it in the first clip we played for you guys. No, they weren't. They were at best a couple of weeks away, which sounds really close, to enriching uranium for the first time at a level where it could be weaponized. But if you wanted to actually put it on a bomb, that actually would have taken at least another year. How often have you heard that on TV? That they were nowhere near being able to weaponize a bomb, that they're not even close to it, not within a year. On TV, it looks like, oh my God, Iran was about to get a nuke and kill us all. Oh, thank God, preventative war and preemptive war from Israel. So, oh, what a great thing. Oh, don't worry about the Iranian civilians. Iran struck back those goddamn terrorists. Okay, so usual stuff. Part of it is, okay, Israel's the greatest and we have to give all of your money to Israel and you have to fight their wars for them. But most of it is make sure America gets sucked into this war. One last thing about the framing. Their physicists were killed and their lead negotiator was killed and their top military leaders and politicians were killed. Now, if Iran had struck first and they'd killed Israeli civilian scientists and the top Israeli negotiator for peace and an Israeli politician and their top 3 military commanders, what would we call it? Everyone in the press would say, murdered, terrorists. No, Israeli civilians were murdered by the terrorists. Israel does it, they were just killed. We're just going after, they were about to get the bomb. What could poor Israel do? So no, Israel's a massive aggressor. They do not let the American media lie to you and pretend starting tomorrow because, now Iran counterattacked. So they'll show you tons of pictures on air about Israel, Tel Aviv. Oh. So look, am I worried about civilians in Israel or Iran? Yes, I don't want any civilians dying in Israel. But don't tell me that you're the victims. Don't tell me that you're doing self-defense and drag America into it. And right now we're massively dragged into it. So how? Number one, we're now doing defense for Israel, defense. So that means we pay a ton of money to bring our aircraft carriers, to bring our ships, and now we're knocking down the Iranian missiles. So we're already on day one, right in the middle of the war. And we find out today, oops, it turns out that we gave them intelligence on the bombing carrier. So wait a minute, so we're involved on the offense and the defense. We're right in the middle of this war. On day one, it was so easy to get America in the middle of this war with Iran. And Israel can't wait for an American service member to be killed. They're gonna set fireworks, not into Israeli civilians and citizens, and the scumbags who run, the terrorists who run their government. Because the minute an American is killed, and by the way, get a load of this. Israel's super protected because we gave them Iron Dome. And we've got our aircraft carriers, we're shooting down everything. But American troops in the Middle East don't have Iron Dome. They're sitting ducks. So the minute Iran hits a soft target, which is us, then Netanyahu's gonna go, checkmate America. Now you're my bitch again. Now you fight my wars. And they'll probably even withdraw and say, America, you do our dirty work for us. Spend a couple of trillion like you did in Iraq, and tens of thousands of Americans get killed or wounded. Who cares? Israel needs you to do something for us. Hurry up and do it, okay? And American media will be like, they are the victims. They are the victims. They're doing self-defense now. We have to help them with their defense. What do you mean defense? What is defense? No, it's nothing but offense. What? So no, get the hell out of there. And I got to get to Maz, so I'll tell you in a minute how they tricked Trump into this. He's such a child. Maz.
Well, you're right on all fronts, and Netanyahu's been wanting to do this for years and years. If you recall, before the actual first nuclear deal, he was at the UN with that Wile E. Coyote bomb and saying Iran is just a couple weeks away. We have to bomb Iran. We have to bomb Iran. And to your point, it seems like he played Donald Trump like an orange-haired fiddle to get him to do this, because he supposedly had convinced Trump that if he does this now, it will help bring Iran to the negotiating table. Which, by the way, Donald Trump, you saw, he said, I told them make a deal in 60 days. This is day 61. They should have made a deal. You better make a deal now. You already had a deal. And this new deal isn't that different from the previous deal. And if we stuck with the previous deal, perhaps we'd have more knowledge about what's going on inside Iran and inside their program. Now, as an Iranian American in the diaspora, I could tell you that a lot of Iranians don't like the government. The government's an oppressive government, and it's maybe not even a trustworthy government, but nobody wants to go to war and kill innocent people. So when I see the images, and I reached out to some relatives and just asking if they're okay. One friend of mine said that he had been at the airport and there was a lot of chaos, but he was fine. But we don't know the numbers, to your point. We don't know the numbers. And as an Iranian American, again, it has been exhausting. It's exhausting to be Iranian in this world, because the people of Iran are really good people. And the government of Iran is oppressive. But then you get caught up in the middle of this where Bibi's playing Trump and Trump is going along, and we're about to start World War III in that region. And so, what can we do? I don't know. And I think a big part of this was also Bibi had been seeing that the continuing killing of Gazans was definitely in the world, was getting more people were knowing about it, and it was another distraction to go, let me go after these guys. And to your point, they've got the backing of America. And I don't know, the thing that I always am perplexed by is these world leaders, when they do these types of things, it seems like they never think about what's the day after. Because if you were to go and bomb Iran and bomb Iran and bomb Iran, what's the day after? What's going to happen? Are you going to find a way to cause a regime change and create a democratic Iran by bombing them? Is that what your strategy is? What is your strategy? So I don't see any strategy there except chaos. And it's very worrisome for all the civilians that are going to be harmed in such a war.
By the way, really fast, so apparently the UN ambassador from Iran says 78 were killed, 320 were wounded.
In Iran?
Yeah.
Yeah. But their civilians don't count, they're Muslim, so it's okay. But the poor Israelis. So I gotta build on two things that Maz said. So number one, look, a lot of governments are terrible in this world, right? Ranging from bad to despotic, right? So are any of us in favor of the Iranian regime? No, it's not a democracy, it's a supreme leader, Ayatollah, fundamentalist, no interest in it, they oppress their own people, etc.
We cheered on the protests that tried to overthrow it just a couple of years ago.
Oh, absolutely, we love that if it's organic coming from the Iranian people, right? So does that mean we should go to war with them? I mean, this is the same thing that they used in Iraq. Oh, Saddam Hussein's a bad guy. But Saddam Hussein was not a threat to America. Where do we get the intelligence that they had weapons of mass destruction? I hope you're sitting. We got it from Israel. And when they say, oh, no, Israel's a really big ally. And I always ask how? All they ever do is get us into wars, they get us into trouble, get us killed, get the whole Muslim world to hate us. How are they an ally? They say, oh, they give us intelligence. Yeah, fake intelligence so that we could fight their wars for them. So with allies like this, you don't need enemies. Israel will create endless enemies for us, and they're doing it again here. So, for example, I don't like the current leader of Turkey and the government right now. I think that he's taking away democracy. I think it's terrible. And a lot of Turks agree with me. Do you think the Turks would then be happy if Turkey was bombed by Israel? What kind of lunatic would say something that stupid? No, all the Turks would be super mad. They would all rally around Erdogan, which would make him much, much stronger, not weaker. And the idea that Turks or Persians or anyone would be like, oh, you've bombed us now. Now we love you so much. Thank you for killing us. This is the stupid neocon philosophy that is so childish, so obviously wrong. They're not even trying hard, and all of the American media, oh yeah, it could be. And then now we turn to Trump. And so Maz is right. Look, I'll do graphic 6 from the next story. We're gonna talk more about how US is getting sucked into this. Watch the show live 6 to 8 o'clock every day. So, but in his long screed, Trump, when he's pretending, and in the next story we'll tell you about why he's pretending that he was in on it all along. He says, as long as I think there's an agreement, I don't want them going in, referring to Israel, okay? Because I think that would blow it. Might help it actually, but also could blow it. Now that was before the strike. So he's told, and this is now verified in 18 different ways, Wall Street Journal saying, he told Israel not to bomb them, right? And then, but the Israelis got in his ear and they're like, oh, no. You know what, I know you want peace, Don, and we all want peace. But like, you know what though, if we bomb them first, that might bring them to the table better. Now, any child would know that that's preposterous. You bomb a country, they're not likely to come to the table more. In fact, they can't come to the table, you murdered their lead negotiator, right? And you bombed their capital, and you killed all those civilians, you injured all those people that John just told you about, and you killed their top military officials and their politicians. Are they more or less likely to come to the? Of course, they're less likely to come to the table right after you bomb their capital. Imagine if Iran bombed Washington, D.C. Do you think that would make us more likely to negotiate with them and give them what they want? Nobody thinks that, other than morons like Donald Trump. We're like, okay, you might be right, Netanyahu. And then you're gonna walk right into the middle of the war, and he did. He's such an idiot.
I think, look, racism ruins everything. That is an insane thing to believe, that they would come to negotiate when you bomb them. Unless you think, well, I'm a good white person, we're logical, reasonable, we use common sense. They're crazy, God only knows what they'll do. Like, if you don't think that the vast majority of the people on Earth are fully conscious, sentient creatures, then you could think whatever the hell you want of them. And you could convince your base to think whatever you want of them. But on the topic of the negotiations, we should talk more about that, because Iran has, perhaps not surprisingly, canceled this weekend's negotiations on the nuclear deal. And their lead negotiator is dead. So that was probably obvious. And a lot of people are wondering, well, like, the goal of these attacks were to stop Iran from developing a nuclear weapon, which we're assured they were on the precipice of getting. But if they thought they needed a nuclear weapon as a deterrent, this kind of seems like confirmation of that. Like, maybe they needed even more, and so there's concern that this could drive them to do anything they need to get the weapon. And we have a little bit on that rough topic from the BBC's security correspondent, Frank Gardner.
There's no guarantee that this is going to be the silver bullet that Israel is hoping for. And there is a fear now that not only is Iran going to continue its retaliation, and who knows where that's going to end, is it just going to be against Israel, or are they going to extend it to Gulf Arab countries? Where will this end? But most importantly, the hawks within Iran's establishment are now going to be saying, we told you so, we were right, they were going to attack us. The best deterrent to stop further attacks like this from Israel is go for the bomb.
I mean, just think about over the course of like the last year, the helicopter, the drone attacks from Israel, now the bombing. Semi-regularly, Israel attacks Iran. And from their perspective, it's totally justified. But from the Iranian point of view, they desperately need a deterrent. And clearly, whatever conventional weapons they have, their military, their ballistic missiles, their drones, all of that clearly does not deter an attack. So if that doesn't do it, what would? Weapons of mass destruction is the answer that a lot of people will provide to that question. And obviously, I don't want them to have that, but I think it's gonna be a lot easier to make that case when you're constantly being attacked.
Yeah, so one more thing about this absurdity about if we bomb them and we start murdering their leaders, they'll be more likely to negotiate. Under that logic, wouldn't that say that, well, Hamas was right to do October 7th because that would make Israel more likely to negotiate? You see how dumb that logic is? You would never apply it to Israel. Right? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, it's a good thing Israel was attacked because then they're more likely to get to a peace deal. No person in America would dare say that sentence. But they say it about the Iranians. They said it about the Iraqis. Oh yeah, they like being murdered. So that's more likely to bring them to the negotiation table. Said morons who repeat obvious Israeli propaganda. And last thing for me on this is, they always frame it as they're about to get a nuke. Jack Callahan, one of our members, wrote in, so yeah, they're about to get a nuke for the last 41 years, right? That's if you listen to Netanyahu, oh, Iran's gonna get a nuke. Iran, you better attack Iran. I don't like Iran. They're a slight challenge to me. Maybe they could be a problem. So just murder them, kill them, attack them. So what happened? 41 straight years. You were lying for the entire goddamn time, and they were lying now, as I told you, they were at least a year away. But that's not the main point. The main point isn't, oh, should we attack them and start a giant war in the Middle East, or Iran gets nukes? No, or you do a peace treaty where you take their uranium out of the country and they can't develop military grade uranium and you get a peace deal. That is the correct answer. That was the answer that Obama gave. That was the answer Trump was going towards. And by the way, we almost had it. And Trump, there was reports that Trump had made a deal, but then Israel came in and said, oh, you're letting him enrich a tiny amount of uranium that doesn't get anywhere near, like it's such a giant difference, guys. I know it sounds like, well, uranium's uranium. It's not. Tons of countries enrich uranium to a point where they could use it for energy, and it cannot be then militarized, right? And the peace deal would have made sure that it technically and could not be militarized, right? So we had that deal, and Israel came in and said, I blocked that deal. Donald Trump, you're not allowed to make that deal. They're not allowed to have any uranium because they knew that Iran would not accept that. Why are they the only ones that are not allowed to have nuclear energy? So since Israel knew that Iran wouldn't accept it, they're like, good. So then we'll get to attack them, and then we'll make America pay for it. And don't get any mistakes here. We will foot almost the entire bill for this war. And when you goes to Congress, all the bought corrupt politicians will say, oh, we have to help our beloved special ally Israel defend itself. Here's all the Americans. Hey, you work your ass off, you work 2 jobs, okay, half of one of those jobs is gonna go to Israel to kill more Iranians, to kill more Palestinians, to invade more countries. Don't you dare try to put food on the table for your family here in America. No, give me that money, it's going to Israel. It's going to their wars. That's a fact. You can catch feelings over it in either direction, but as a stone cold fact, how many more hundreds of billions of dollars is Israel gonna take from us to start more aggressive wars in the Middle East? All right, Maz, last word on this.
You know, they literally blew up the nuclear deal. They literally blew it up. They killed the negotiator. They killed other people that were involved. And going back to Netanyahu was trying to convince Trump to not do the nuclear deal. So you got to imagine Netanyahu or somebody within his inner circle was saying, hey, you know what? Since we can play Trump like a pawn, let's convince him that doing this bombing is going to help that negotiation. Because famously, Trump keeps saying that he's a peaceful, he doesn't want war, he doesn't want war, he doesn't want war. And here we are, we're in war now. We are in the war. And it is just, it's so amazing how small-brained Trump is to fall for this. Because a strong Trump, if he were strong, he would have told Bibi, no, do not attack. I'm about to make this deal, and that will make the world a safer place. And we will have an ability to go in and observe their nuclear program. And as you said, bring the weaponization out, and they can have a nuclear energy, but they won't have a weaponized nuclear program. And so that's what a strong leader would have done. But on the other hand, we've got Trump in office, and he just, went along, here we go. And perhaps he'll do what, like, if you recall, with Russia and Ukraine, he said, I'll have it solved on day 1. And here we are several months later, and he's kind of put his hands in the air and been like, let him just figure it out. And so similarly in this situation, Cenk, as you were saying, we're just gonna keep funding Israel, and Trump's gonna say, oh, let them just do whatever they got to do, and we'll see where this leads. And where this, unfortunately, if you look at history, where this will lead is to hundreds of thousands of innocent Iranians dying, probably several thousand Israelis, several thousand, possibly several thousand American soldiers, and it's going to be a repeat of Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, that's what it feels like right now. And so once again, Donald Trump was played by Bibi Netanyahu.
Yeah, super weak on his part. And even a lot of MAGA is saying that today. We'll have that later in the show. And when we come back, how they're gonna pull America into the war and make us pay for it. We'll be right back. Start with super chat. Yvonne says, I'm getting awful sense of deja vu. Yeah, we all are, Yvonne. Jonathan Johnny says, the vast majority of Iranians hated their government more than anything for good reason. If Israel starts eliminating civilians, that might change. Thank you, TYT, for your brave and honest coverage. Thank you, Jonathan, I appreciate that. And yeah, of course, whenever you're attacked, you rally around the flag. Most obvious thing in the world. Remember when the neocons said, oh, we'll be greeted as liberators in Iraq? And we're still listening to those a-holes? I mean, and the media still takes them seriously. I can't wait for Jake Tapper's book after the war. No one saw this coming. Okay, I'll repeat that later. In Guns We Trust says, as a Christian libertarian, I'm for defunding Israel. Muslims have been scapegoated for decades, blamed for global issues just to justify wars and control their oil. Prior to 1948, there was relative peace among the three faiths. Once again, facts. You can cry about those facts. You can say, oh no, don't say facts, they offend me, but that's just a fact. If you're, by the way, Candace Owens said this the other day. She said, I didn't know that I was brainwashed into hating Muslims so that we could fight Israel's wars for them. But the media I grew up with always told me that Muslims are terrorists and violent savages. And meanwhile, Israel was attacking them and taking their land. And then we were supposed to help Israel kill them while we called Muslims savages. A lot of Americans are waking up and finding out, oh, Muslims are human beings like everyone else. They're not savages, they're not more likely to be violent. That Bill Maher lied to you. That American media lied to you, CNN lied to you, New York Times lied to you. They all lied to you and painted Muslims as more violent, right? I had a 3-hour debate with Sam Harris about this. No, I'm an atheist, but you know what? Oh, those dirty Muslims. They're so violent, we have to kill them all and take their land. Oh, I see how they're violent. Okay, so all of this giant propaganda in the US press over and over again. All right, Beck271 at tyt.com says, John's soft sarcasm gives me life. Hedgehog Dragon says, evening TYT fam, and welcome to the defining 72 hours of Trump's second term and setting up the next 10 years of political discourse. I totally agree about that. I want to talk about that in the next story about how it's going to define Trump. Newfie Dragon says, I knew that Israel would never let Iran get close to a bomb, regardless of who signed what treaty. Mossad has been assassinating Iranian scientists for decades, of course, because Israel is run by terrorists, and so they kill civilians all the time. They killed an Iranian scientist that was not necessarily part of the Iranian nuclear program at all in front of his kids as he was picking them up from kindergarten. That's what terrorists do. That is the government of Israel. But did you guys hear about that? Did you hear ABC and CNN going, I can't believe how terrorists the Israelis are? Of course not, of course not. No, they murder civilians in Iran, no big deal. Israel is allowed to murder anyone they like, by the way, including Americans. They've killed about 12 Americans in the West Bank. Biden didn't say anything, Trump didn't say anything. They're allowed to murder Americans, they're allowed to murder anyone. They're the special, amazing Israelis. Their lives are worth 1 billion non-Israeli lives. They can kill anyone they like, they can declare any war. But remember, Muslims are the violent savages. Yeah. TYT, Cenk, John, and Maz with you guys. And Alan Wade, thank you for hitting that join button below the video on YouTube. Guys, look, man, we're besieged in 1,000 different ways, including by people who think that we are too offensive about Israel. That we should, how dare we not kiss their ass more? That's what you're supposed to do in American media. We've been very bad rebels, not acceptable. So we rely on you guys. So if you can, hit the join button, go to tyt.com/join. Join on tyt.com. Stanley Smith, thank you for gifting a membership too. I appreciate all of you guys. We love our audience. All right, John's got the rest.
Yes, and don't worry, we are going to talk about the National Guard, the war here at home, but first a little bit more on the war that we're about to be dragged into, starting with this.
The president speaking with our John Carl said of the attacks that he thinks it's been excellent. He said we gave them a chance and they didn't take it. They got hit hard, very hard. They got hit about as hard as you're going to get hit. And there's more to come, a lot more. And when asked if the US participated in the attack in any way, the president interestingly said, I don't want to comment on that.
We are getting, and we were likely to get in the near future, very mixed messages about exactly what was going on in terms of coordination between the government of the United States and Israel in advance of those strikes. And so now, regardless, Donald Trump would have you believe that he was totally on board, that maybe this was even his idea, and it's awesome, and it will help us achieve all of our goals, which he had been failing on in terms of getting that deal, I guess, since we needed to move to these attacks, but don't consider it a failure. He's on board with the war, and there's gonna be a whole lot of it to come. That's what he's saying now. Interestingly, coming right out of the attacks, that's not what the administration was saying. So Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he put out this statement saying, tonight, Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. Let me be clear, Iran should not target US interests or personnel. So that is what Marco Rubio is saying, implying that we should not get involved in this, which it being Marco Rubio and considering his backers, I'm sure Cenk is gonna have a lot to say about that. But if you hear it from Donald Trump, we were way more involved in it. He said, and this is on Truth Social, I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come, and they know how to use it. Much more. $50 billion worth of more, $100 billion worth of more, $1 to $2 trillion worth of more. I don't know, I've lived through these wars before. Those numbers can go sky high very fast. He continues, there has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. God, he's so weird. No more death, no more destruction, just do it before it's too late. And he rolled it out on Truth Social, he's been working on it. Here he is with a similar sort of message to Dana Bash.
He responded by saying, quote, we of course support Israel, obviously, and supported it like nobody has ever supported it. And then he went on to say this, Iran should have listened to me when I said, I gave them, I don't know if you know this, but I gave them a 60-day warning, and today is day 61. And then he said, they, meaning Iran, should now come to the table to make a deal before it's too late. And then he said something really noteworthy. He said, the people I was dealing with are dead, the hardliners, to which I just wanted to underscore. So what you're saying is Israel has now killed the people who you were dealing with. And he said very sarcastically, they didn't die of the flu, they didn't die of COVID.
The weirdest possible response to that question. By the way, I could have missed it. I've never heard of that 60-day thing before. I'm assuming he's lying about that in the same way that he supposedly called Gavin Newsom and berated him, and there's no evidence that that was true too. Donald Trump is being made to look a fool in situations around the globe. He couldn't solve Ukraine in one day. He couldn't resolve the situation in Gaza. He couldn't stop Israel from attacking Iran. He couldn't make China bow down to us economically, or Europe for that matter. He is looking weak and foolish and old and tired. And so more and more lies need to be rolled out on a daily basis to puff him up and pretend that he's strong and clever and sharp and tough, and everybody's very intimidated by him. And so some of that comes in the form of these lies, which I know we'll talk about, but I just want everyone to be prepared. Since he apparently has no capacity to make himself feel like a big tough guy abroad, it's possible he'll want to do that here in America. It's possible that it's not a coincidence that he's using the military so early in his second term against protesters and promising, if you come to my military parade, I'm gonna do the same thing. This is a guy who needs to believe that he's tough, and he's not. And when that's shown, when he's flailing, and when he's being criticized by the right, by the way, he needs to make himself feel better somehow. So I would watch yourself if you're out on the streets this weekend.
Yeah, so first of all, they're more likely to come to the table. What table? Israel just blew up the table. Iran literally has to find a new peace negotiator because their earlier peace negotiator was murdered by Israel. Gee, I wonder if you want peace or war when you murder the other side's peace negotiator, okay? So don't ever let anyone lie to you. Israel 100% started this war, okay? And no, Iran was not close to having a nuclear bomb. That would have taken well over a year. even if they got to weaponized uranium, they still had no way of delivering it, okay? Building a bomb is a completely different enterprise than enriching uranium. And it's amazing how everything gets memory hold. So that's immediately forgotten by all the press. The fact that they bombed in the middle of their capital and killed civilians, barely reported. But my God, the injuries in Israel, and now they're instantly the victims, right? So look, we're doing a poll, speaking of that, on our website, tyt.com. Now that Israel has started a war with Iran, how much should we support Israel from now on? Well, number one, A, more financial aid to help them defend themselves. B, less financial aid because this war is against our interests. Or C, our aid to Israel should be zero. Zero. Okay, so now let's talk about how they're gonna drag us in. Real quick on Rubio, by the way, John, you mentioned that. Now, yes, Rubio's taken over $1 million from AIPAC throughout his career, but so have a lot of senators and congressmen. They're all owned by AIPAC. I debated someone earlier today on a different show where they said, no, AIPAC's just giving them money because they happen to agree. They're not buying them, and they're not, and AIPAC's not working on behalf of Israel, it's working on behalf of America. I mean, who says stuff like this with a straight face, okay? So, but you go ahead, Israel and Israeli supporters, do your stupid, obvious propaganda. Now, you're getting caught by left, right, middle, everyone. No one believes a word you say anymore. By the way, Israel also bragging about how they lied to the Iranians in 100 different ways. I get it, if you're gonna do a surprise attack, you're gonna lie, etc. But they also lied to the whole press and stuff. Again, I get it, but remember, the next time that Israel puts out a statement, it's incredibly likely that it's a lie, and later they will laugh at the press for helping them pull off a surprise attack and attack a sovereign country and start a giant war in the Middle East. Look at the idiot American press. They'll just report anything we say as if we aren't giant liars and didn't lie every single time. And sometimes like this, we lie, we brag about how we lied to you and how you're our stenographers and you just told everyone the Israeli point of view and skewed everything in our behalf. Yeah, I know, that's American media. Okay, so how are we gonna get dragged into this? We got an aircraft carrier there. We got a bunch of Navy ships. We got jets in the air. And we got bases in the Middle East. They do not have Iron Dome. None of them are protected like Israel. We're all sitting ducks there. We got these giant ships just sitting in the middle of the sea waiting for a drone strike. We got bases that are not at all, I mean, they're protected in terms of having troops there, in terms of having air cover, but can they get hit because they're not protected by aerial cover like Iron Dome? Yes. So basically Netanyahu told this moron Donald Trump, hey, you know what, if I blow up the negotiation table, they're more likely to return to it. If I murder everyone in their government, they're more likely to want to do a peace deal. And Trump's like, okay. Or he was like, oh, okay, yeah, but how much are you bribing me? Oh, you're bribing me a lot? Oh, okay, I already took Qatar's money, now I'll take more of your money. Okay, sure, I'll do whatever war you want. Who cares about the American people? Oh, I said I was anti-war during the campaign? And they didn't know I'm a giant liar? And MAGA, what happened? He's a liar, right? Or he's an idiot, pick one. Because he said anti-war, and this ain't anti-war. And he brings, just like Israel wants, he brings our troops and our military to sit there like sitting ducks, inviting Iran to attack them so that we'll get sucked into another multi-trillion-dollar war like Iraq. Oh, except Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. Jesus. So if you thought the Iraq war cost us a lot in blood and treasure, wait till you see how much we lose in Iran because we always have to do Israel's dirty work for them. And are we already knee deep in this war? Oh no, golly gee, we didn't do it. That brings me back to the Rubio statement. Rubio's statement is so important because despite the fact that he's bribed by AIPAC, he went out and said, we didn't do this. This was a unilateral strike by Israel, which I thought was really surprising because Rubio mainly, his job is to fillet Israel. And so here he was going, we got nothing to do with this. So that made it clear. America did not authorize the attack. Trump afterwards realized he looks weak. Netanyahu, as he was holding Netanyahu's chair for him, Netanyahu was like, you think you're the boss of me? You told me not to attack. Wall Street Journal reported that, many people reported that. So I ignored you because you're useless. You're the American president. I order the American president around all the time. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. We're the boss of you. So that's super embarrassing to Trump. So he's like, oh, I knew. It was an excellent attack. Yeah, now why'd you have Rubio say it was unilateral and has nothing to do with us earlier? That shows you 100% that he did not authorize the attack. Netanyahu bitch slapped him across the face. So what are you gonna sit there, bleed all day? Now go do my propaganda for me, boy. Boy, go out there and tell them how excellent I am. Then get your troops killed and fight my war for me, just like you did in Iraq. And Trump said, okay, sir. Is the money still coming? AIPAC and AIDO says, is the money still coming? Anti-war my ass. I told you he wasn't anti-war. Look, I'm encouraging yes, by the way, the left. Tucker Carlson, we're gonna talk about it later in the program. Tucker Carlson and other people we massively disagree with saying, yeah, Trump got tricked. He's complicit in this. So yes, you should get their base angry. They should be angry. They voted anti-war. They didn't get anti-war. And MAGA, we're gonna find out who you are. And finally, if you think, oh, well, it was just defense. I mean, poor Israel had to be defended against those monstrous Muslims who were counterattacking. Okay, it turns out today we find out we also provided intelligence for the attack. Now, we didn't know necessarily that they were gonna use that intelligence to do the attack, but we did provide intelligence. Oops. So that means we were part of the offense and the defense. That means we're in the middle of the war right now. How easy was it for Netanyahu to trick or bribe the simple-minded Donald Trump into being massively pro-war and dragging us into another giant war in the Middle East, which is the exact opposite of what he promised. Maz.
You know, Donald Trump is at once an unintelligent child and a madman combined. He said that it was the Iranian Empire, it was the Persian Empire. He also famously didn't seem to care about Iran when he was going to visit the Gulf countries, and he had said that he was going to claim that the name of the Persian Gulf is the Arabian Gulf because he wanted to play into the hands of the Gulf countries. So I don't know if he really cares about the Iranian people. I actually doubt it, simply because if you remember in 2020, John Bolton backed him into possibly going to war with Iran when they killed General Soleimani. And at that time, as the tensions were escalating between Iran and America, Trump came out and was warning the Iranian government that he would bomb Iran and bomb their historical sites, which have nothing to do with this regime, this Islamic Republic of Iran. It's what Iranians are proud of. And he said, I will bomb those sites of yours. So I don't know how much he cares for the Iranian people. He certainly is, again, unintelligent in the fact that he's saying, well, they killed my negotiators, they killed the hardliners. There weren't only 5 hardliners. There's the whole Islamic Republic regime are hardliners. And so it's not like once you kill these guys, then everything's solved. Then proof of that is when we killed Soleimani in 2020, this guy Salemi, who just was killed now with these strikes, he just took over. Another hardliner comes in and takes over. And then to your point of did he know, did he not know, did we know, did we not know? You know, there's only 2 options. Either he didn't know and he got played, or he did know and he played along and we pretended that we were gonna go negotiate, in which case we are duplicitous and we are saying that we can't trust the Iranians. Well, can the Iranians trust us? Because from now on, anything we say and do is totally unbelievable because, you know, is it real? Is it not real? Are we really coming to, how do they know if they sat down at a negotiation table that snipers wouldn't come in and take out their negotiators again because America goaded them into it? I mean, this is constantly, again, what's going on and in terms of the attacks without a second idea about what are we gonna do next. And Netanyahu has been jonesing for this for years. He's been jonesing for this for years. Let's not forget, Netanyahu's got his own problems, criminal prosecutions in Israel. He's got those hardliners he's in bed with, and you know, again, killing tens of thousands of innocent Gazans. So he needs to keep this going, keep this level of emergency going. This is a vital thing. We need to keep going. They have all the arms they need, and Trump just told you they're going to give them more arms. And so it really is, from the outside, I'm perplexed that there's not somebody inside the administration who taps him and goes, hey, dude, you're falling for a trap. Don't fall for a trap. But again, he's very easily convinced to do many things. We looked at the fact that he, brought those Afrikaners in. Somebody was in his ear saying, hey, bring these Afrikaners that are being persecuted in South Africa, bring them, let them come in and be refugees. And so similarly, someone's in his ear, Netanyahu's in his ear saying, hey, don't worry, we'll bomb them and it'll help the negotiations. And here we are. It hasn't even been 24 hours. And it's just escalating and getting worse and worse.
So I'm just gonna make a tiny point here. Just as you watch the coverage, I want you to look out to see if this happens. If Iran had struck first and they had hit in Jerusalem and killed 78 people, mostly civilians, and over 200 injured, what would they have called that strike? They would have called it a terrorist strike, right? Because if it happens inside Israel and civilians are killed and you're bombing a major city, it's a terrorist strike. When Israel does it, let's find out, is American media, is anyone outside the Young Turks gonna call it what it is? Israeli terrorism, where they murdered civilians, scientists, but also just people that had nothing to do with the program at all, okay? No, of course, when Israel does terrorism, it's preventative war, okay? There is no such thing. When you start a war, you didn't prevent one, you created one. So later in the program, we're gonna talk about MAGA's reaction. When we come back during the break, I will read your comments, and there's a lot of interesting ones. So stay here during the break.
You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
All right, guys, we're gonna cover the military parade on Saturday, such as it is. It's gonna be really interesting coverage. The lead hosts are me and Ben Cohen from Ben and Jerry's. Oh my God. Obviously Trump's birthday too, and so we're calling it Tanks for Nothing. Nina Turner's gonna join, Richard Ojeda's gonna join. We're gonna have military experts explain all the money that he's wasting for his little birthday party. Are you okay, Dad? You got your buddy? You're gonna have a nice birthday with the tanks. All right. So now, by the way, Anna the other day was on Piers Morgan and called the person arguing in favor of Israel a vile individual, and you guys demanded that we do shirts and have started doing pre-orders before we could even figure it out. So I love it, and we are doing it. So there's going to be a shirt, "You're a vile individual." And so,
the little stars are nice.
Yeah, that's why we were amused by that. So go to shoptyt.com to pre-order that, shoptyt.com. And speaking of Shopify helps us run it. And they're really good, guys. So if you're running a business, you're selling merch, or anything you need a platform, it'll make it easy for you. And then boom, you're in business so quickly with that. Sign up for your now $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/TYT. Shopify.com/TYT. It really is easy. You really can get started that way, and it's just $1 a month. Okay, so now let's go to Super Chat again. I Love Broccoli wrote in, as a Trumper, Trump is looking extremely weak while Israel looks like a final boss. Damn. Okay, that is true. He also wrote in afterwards and said a leader would cut off all funding to Israel and tell them that there will be consequences for overstepping. Okay, not only is that true, think about what he's saying. And remember, this guy's a Trump supporter, okay? And so thank you, brother, for having an open mind, as we did about Biden, okay? That we need to unite the country and see that our politicians are liars, okay? Almost all the politicians are liars. So, but to his comment, Now, when Trump said not to attack and then Netanyahu attacked, what is Israel gonna think? America's a joke. We just push them around. They tell us no. We go, shut up. We're gonna do it anyway. And then we're gonna come to you and say, now give me a lot of money. Well, I didn't want that war. I don't care. Give me 10 billion, 20 billion, 40 billion, or go fight it for me like Iraq and have it cost a couple of $1 trillion. I'm not gonna pay for it. Israel never pays for anything. No, the American people will pay for it. You'll pay for it. You understand that? And Trump's like, okay, sir. I mean, how do you not look weak? He's making America look like a joke. Is America America? Or are we just like servants of Israel? Hey guys, the one irony or silver lining here is now you Americans, now you know what it feels like to be a Palestinian. Just occupy territory. We're not in charge. All right, 00083 said, Cenk, I said last week, and now we all see that Israel was going to attack, regardless of a nuclear deal. Nothing was going to stop Israel from attacking. Yep. TOT, Cenk, John, and Maz. We are going to get back to MAGA reaction to the war a little bit later in the program, but we got to talk about here at home and the National Guard. So, John.
Yeah, rough week for Cenk to have not been here on the show in LA.
I know, I was trying to do as many videos as I could from the streets of New York.
I know.
Check out the shorts.
Okay, well, let's jump into this. A federal appeals court late last night paused a ruling, a very brief one, that required President Donald Trump to return control of the California National Guard to the state after he seized it to deploy against protesters in Los Angeles. Senior US District Judge Charles Breyer had ruled that Trump unlawfully federalized thousands of members of California's National Guard and would have to return control by, well, right around now, actually, if it hadn't been paused. And it has been, but we will still want to give you some of the ruling because this process is not done and that original ruling has some pretty good points in it. He said Trump's actions were illegal, both exceeding the scope of his statutory authority and violating the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution. He must therefore return control of the California National Guard to the governor of the state of California forthwith. Which is a word we should bring back, I think. Regardless of whether defendants gave Governor Newsom an opportunity to consult with them or consent to the federalization of California's National Guard, they did not issue their orders through him and thus failed to comply with federal law. They didn't do any of that, he just took it. Not only did he not work with Gavin Newsom, California, the mayor of LA, the LAPD, were all saying we don't need this, but they had different goals in mind than Donald Trump perhaps. And in addition to that, the judge outright rejected the idea that what's happening in downtown LA is an insurrection, saying violence is necessary for a rebellion, but it is not sufficient. Even accepting the questionable premise that people armed with fireworks, rocks, mangoes, concrete, chairs, or bottles of liquid are armed in a 1903 sense, the court is aware of no evidence in the record of actual firearms. There is little evidence of whether the violent protesters' actions were open or avowed. Nor is there evidence that any of the violent protesters were attempting to overthrow the government as a whole. The evidence is overwhelming that protesters gathered to protest a single issue, the immigration raids. And he concludes saying, the court is troubled by the implication inherent in defendants' argument that protest against the federal government, a core civil liberty protected by the First Amendment, can justify a finding of rebellion. The idea that protesters can so quickly cross the line between protected conduct and rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States is untenable and dangerous. And I would really love for judges, not just him, but at higher levels, the Supreme Court, to make very clear that simply because you disagree with Donald Trump and you're out in public, that's a rebellion. If that's allowed to stand, and I worry that the Supreme Court will allow it to, well then kiss the Constitution goodbye. The First Amendment isn't worth the paper that it was originally written on at that point. And Donald Trump is doing it against this protest, against the protests involving ICE, but he'll do the same thing against the No Kings protest. If you protest against his parade, if you protest for women's right to control what happens to her body, he does not tolerate people disagreeing with him. Very few people on the right do these days. And so at least temporarily we had a judge on our side. Now, it was appealed and the 3 judges of the 9th Circuit, they did temporarily block it. So he does have control throughout this weekend. So that's concerning. They're going to be holding a hearing on Tuesday, though. In advance of that, Donald Trump thanked them for the ruling, saying that if he hadn't sent the military to LA, the city would have burned down by now, which maybe he's right about that. I'm not sure. 50-50 chance that LA would have been entirely burned to the ground if he hadn't instigated further violence.
Yeah, so, okay, let's start with free speech. Earlier, last I checked in on the right wing, before the election, they were massively in favor of free speech. Right after the election, oh, you're doing a protest of ICE or Trump, bring in the Marines. Well, if you bring in the Marines, you could cancel some people. So that's certainly for sure. Okay, now guys, I'm not talking about the guys who did property damage and etc. I'll get back to them in a second, okay? I'm aware that they exist, okay? Who started it? I started it. They fired flashbang grenades into the crowd. The crowd wasn't doing anything. They had actually ICE had stopped traffic. And then people started recording, and when they started recording, ICE got mad and they started this whole mess. And when you get hit in the head with a tear gas canister, you tend to want to throw something back, okay? So that's the genesis of how it started. Okay, then later there were different things that devolved, right? Now, why am I against it overall? Because we're not a developing country or a banana republic, and I don't like to see the military patrolling the streets of the US. Also, we have laws against the military patrolling inside the US. Also, don't tread on me. I was told that we should be really careful about tyrannical government bringing in the military to oppress us. And here's Trump doing it, and the right wing's like, yes, finally, tyrannical government to rule us all with a heavy hand in all of our cities. No. And then why is Trump constantly looking for abusing the Constitution, abusing our laws, overreaching his authority, constantly looking to be more in favor of an authoritarian government? So real quick, yeah,
can I just jump in with just a bit of breaking news? So this is obviously against the law and all of that, but the Marines apparently, as of 30 minutes ago, was reported, have done at least the first detention of a civilian in LA. So the Marines are exercising arrest authority in an American city.
Not just the National Guard, which he can't call in without a governor's permission, which is actually what Trump said earlier, and many people in his administration and even Kash Patel said he can't do it, right? Except he is doing it. He's clearly violating the law because he loves violating the law. He wants to be a dictator so badly. And guys, look, if you're a MAGA and you're like, oh, no way, man, you guys have TDS and all that stuff. Look, Trump's a simple guy. So what does he want? He wants money. So that's why when he says, they asked him once, hey, the Saudis, it looks like they might be money laundering through Trump Tower and stuff. And Trump said, they give me $30-40 million an apartment. What am I gonna do, say no? No, I'm gonna take it. Simple guy, you give me money, I do what you want, okay? And then what is the other thing he wants? Power. So he thinks, why wouldn't I take more power? I'm the president, I should be able to do whatever I want. No, that's not how the presidency works. You're thinking about a king. He's like, yeah, that sounds good. Me want more money, me want more power. Me have military in the streets, run tyrannical government, perfect. That way I could tread on you, but you can't tread on me. Me, more power. Okay, look, it's not to say that people didn't do wrong things. So I'm gonna address that real quick and then I'm gonna kick it over to Maz. Guys, if you're in these protests, I know the cops, not just the military, but the cops we've shown it on TYT, go onto our live vertical and watch for hours. We cover the protests and you see horses trampling on protesters, etc., right? So that has happened. But did some people commit violence and property damage? Yes, they did. Should they be considered part of our allies and protesters and our side? No, turn them in, okay? Don't listen to radical idiots telling you, oh, they're just, they're just protesting. They're not protesting. The civil rights movement would never tolerate violence because it destroyed the movement. It would allow, back then, racist people to go, you see, black people are all violent. That is why they policed themselves and made sure there was no violence, so there would be no excuse for the authorities to commit much bigger violence on them. So if you see anyone in a protest doing violence, burning a Waymo, burning things down, doing property damage on innocent people's homes, business, etc., turn them in. They are not on your side. They're the ones who are actually making you look terrible and hurting the immigrants, hurting our communities. They're so counterproductive. It makes me wonder if they're a false flag operation, right? Because if you were a right winger and you wanted to turn all sympathy against LA, against the cities, against our communities, against immigrants, you would go in, burn a bunch of things down, burn the American flag, and act like the idiots who broke the law did. You've got to get rid of those people. You've got to keep it peaceful so that we're on the moral high ground and we win. I know radicals will say, no, violence is the answer because they're stupid. Okay, Maz.
Well, Cenk, I'm happy to hear you say what you just said, because when the MAGA attacked the Capitol on January 6th, one of the defenses that people that were supporters of MAGA were saying, well, what about the protests in Portland? What about the protests there? What about the rioters in these protests? And it's always amazing that people that are open-minded to anything will say, yeah, they should be arrested as well. If you broke the law, you should be arrested. Therefore, the people who stormed the Capitol should be arrested and not pardoned the way Trump pardoned them. Actual criminals doing crimes, actually going after cops, actually killing people in those protests, wanting to hang Mike Pence. So it's just very rich that those people will excuse and say, oh, the insurrectionists were tourists, and here we are at a protest that's mostly peaceful with some people who are rioters, and you go, okay, arrest the rioters. Yes, arrest the rioters. But what's happened also is, I think, by bringing in the authorities and all these other, the National Guard and now the Marines, you're escalating the tension, you're elevating the tension. And what's crazy, first of all, is we live in Los Angeles, and we know that what was happening was in a pretty small area. But people outside of Los Angeles, when they see the footage, the press, the way the press has covered it, it looked like the city was burning down. And so I had several people reaching out to me. I just did a show in Hermosa Beach, which, as you guys know, is about 45 minutes away from downtown LA. It's its own community. And I had somebody call me from San Diego saying, oh, I bought tickets to come to your show, but then I saw the riots and the curfew, so I'm not gonna come. And I was like, it's in Hermosa Beach. There's nothing going on. So the press has not done a good job of indicating that the protests aren't as violent as these images show. And also, Trump has even come to admit that he was wrong with his policy. We saw that he came out and said, oh, the raids of farm workers and some of these other people that are working is not a good thing because it's hurting the farms, it's hurting these businesses. And it all goes back to, when they originally said that we are gonna deport undocumented violent criminals. And they've come to realize there just aren't that many of them. So now they're just going after undocumented people. So really the bigger threat to Los Angeles are not the protesters, but ICE. And they're going to car washes, they're going to schools, they're going to places where people that are here that are trying to become legal are showing up in courthouses for hearings, and they're being arrested and deported. So that needs to be shown more and more in the news. That needs to be shown more and more to the MAGA world for them to realize that this is all a big play to distract from some of his policies that have been failures, from his tariffs, from the big, beautiful bill that's gonna take away a bunch of people's insurance. And so this is their way. This is Stephen Miller's way of going in. Stephen Miller called for a quota. When you call for a quota of deportations, nothing good comes from that, because when you call for a quota, we know that now those people that are authorities are gonna try and fill those quotas. So they're standing there in schools and just taking parents away from children, parents that haven't committed any crimes. They've been here for many, many years, leading a good life, trying to be good citizens, causing fewer problems than American citizens do. So once again, I will say that this is all something that has been, drummed up by the Trump administration to distract from a lot of his failures, and a lot of his base is buying into it. But even he has realized it's bad policy, as he realizes that this is going to hurt our economy. the workers that were picking the strawberries, the workers that were cooking and doing construction, and all of that stuff are just being deported. It's so plain to see.
Yeah. So last things for me. Some of MAGA is saying, "Oh my God, you see LA is such a mess." He had to call in the National Guard. He had to call in the Marines. Remind me if there was anything going on in LA before ICE came in. No, nothing. Perfectly peaceful. There's nothing going on. ICE comes in, does the raid, and then attacks the people who they stopped in traffic, and then a melee breaks out because they started attacking them. In the beginning, it wasn't even protesters, it was bystanders who were looking like, "Wait, what's going on?" And they were filming it. They're like, "How dare you film it?" That's it. ICE attacks. ICE brought this problem. So as a matter of fact, there's no question. You can say, hey, ICE needs to bring that problem to each city. They need to do these raids, and then they need to bring in the Marines, and they need to take over all of the cities. That's again, very curious stance from guys who warned me about the tyranny of government and how we shouldn't let these troops, and they had practiced fighting them in the woods when they came. Brother, they're not in the woods, they're in LA, right? And then lastly, look, both sides, please be consistent. So the MAGA guys go, those January 6th guys, you make it seem like it was just a big giant riot, but most of the people who were at the speech were perfectly peaceful, so it was mainly peaceful. You sound just like the left, right? The protests were largely peaceful, and there's a couple of idiots who did something wrong, and then they should be arrested. You know why you sound like the left? Because that is true. Most of these protests on the left and Donald Trump's speech, the majority of people were peaceful. But should we arrest the people who committed violence? Well, of course we should. They could bust into the Capitol talking about murdering Mike Pence. What are you gonna do? And then they beat the cops with sticks. We're not gonna arrest them? Of course you have to arrest them. And then if you're on the left, if you say, of course you have to arrest those guys, don't you obviously also have to arrest the guy who burned the Waymo and who threw a brick through a window? Of course you do, of course you do. Arrest the people doing the violence with local law enforcement, okay? And let the protests go on otherwise. And do not bring the military into any of our cities. If Donald Trump's crowning achievement might be, oh, congratulations, America. I didn't make America great again. I made America a banana republic for the first time. I don't want it, nobody wants it, but unfortunately we're stuck with it. Okay, we gotta go. Everybody check out John on Damage Report Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern. That starts off the Young Turks. You can catch our whole schedule on tyt.com. We run it as a 24-hour channel. And Maz, you can check out where he's going at mazjabrani.com. Okay, he's gonna be touring, including in Hermosa Beach, apparently.
But don't risk it. Don't risk it.
No. Oh yeah, it's very risky down there.
Yeah, the only thing you'll risk in Hermosa Beach is sunburn. Okay, all right, love you guys. We'll be right back with the second hour, including MAGA reaction to Trump starting a war. Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets, where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
I am willing to go to jail if that's what it takes for our country. Randy Argual.
Drop it. All right, back on TYT Power Panel. Cenk Uygur, Michael Schur, Yasmin Aliyah Khan. Yasmin's on Rebel HQ, and she also does the Modern Context podcast. So we've got a lot more about the war and many other topics for you guys. Also, Ben just joined by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube. Everybody, you can join at tyt.com/join. That's super helpful to join through our website too, but we'll take it anywhere you do it. We appreciate it. And Titan, thank you for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. All right. Who's got the next story, Michael or Yasmin?
I think we're going to go with Yasmin this time.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got the story. Yeah. All right, let's get into it. We have a lot to discuss today.
The Iranians are about to get their asses kicked, and it's been coming since Jimmy Carter.
Get American forces into the region to defend Israel, to defend our deployed forces, to defend our Arab friends in the Gulf region. It's now time to think of the campaign for regime change in Iran.
Is the United States about to be sucked into yet another war in the Middle East? Because that's exactly the opposite of what I campaigned for, what President Trump campaigned for, and I don't think the people of those rallies were campaigning for a wider regional war in the Middle East.
It is certainly possible. All of this has been a giant head fake from the Trump administration. They knew the entire time. They supported them with intelligence.
In the aftermath of Israel's strike in Iran, conservatives have fractured into two groups. The hawks within the party are cheering for more death and destruction. Meanwhile, the America First crowd is also a little bit split on how they're feeling about everything that just went down. So some are openly criticizing President Donald Trump, while others are pushing for peace while trying not to say anything bad about Trump. It's a very precarious situation that they're in. So we'll break all of this down momentarily. But before we do, Cenk, I know you guys discussed this a little bit in the first hour, but is this playing out the way that you thought it would so far?
Look, I wasn't sure what Donald Trump was going to do because he's an enormous flip-flopper. And so I think he got hoodwinked into this war. We'll talk more about it in a little bit as to how he got hoodwinked into it. But as you can tell from the war hawks, which we're going to discuss first, Mark Levin basically saying, we've been trying to start this war since Jimmy Carter. I'm not sure that makes the case you think it makes. And then of course, John Bolton, neocon extraordinaire, immediately jumps in it and is fighting for regime change, but he's doing it for our Arab friends. So we really appreciate it, John. But let's talk about the war hawks and how they tricked Trump into this.
Yeah, John Bolton can't help but John Bolton all the time. So yeah, we're gonna start with the hawks here. We got Senator Lindsey Graham posting this on Twitter or X, sorry, right after the initial reports of the Israel strikes. He says, "Game on, pray for Israel." So both Democrats and Republicans have already slammed Lindsey Graham for referring to a potential regional war as a game. By the way, because seriously, like, what is wrong with him? He sounds like someone who is just like, he really wants to hang out with the cool kids, but it's not working. But he just says whatever he thinks will get them to like him. And to that point, that's not all that Lindsey Graham had posted. He posted more. He said, again, "I applaud President Trump for urging Iran back to the negotiating table in order to end the regime's nuclear ambitions through diplomacy, avoiding further bloodshed. However, if Iran refuses this order, I strongly believe it is in America's national security interest to go all in to help Israel finish the job. One of the benefits of this approach is that it would substantially undo the damage done to our reputation by Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. If diplomacy fails, going all in for Israel shows that America is back as a reliable ally and a strong force against oppression. It would strengthen our hand in all corners of the world, as well as all other conflicts we face." Okay, I don't know who listens to Lindsey Graham anymore. He flip-flops so hard. He's so embarrassingly obsequious that I don't know why anyone listens to him, or I don't know who can find value in anything that he says. But moving on, Senator John Fetterman struck a similar tone last night. He said, "Our commitment to Israel must be absolute, and I fully support this attack. Keep wiping out Iranian leadership and then the nuclear personnel. We must provide whatever is necessary, military, intelligence, weaponry to fully back Israel in striking Iran." Then we have House Speaker Mike Johnson, and he referred to Israel's preemptive strike as an act of self-defense. So he says Israel is right and has a right to defend itself. All right, so I'm never gonna be on the side of doing war. I don't think I could ever be convinced that war actually solves problems. Historically, we typically see that war creates a ton of problems. And the irony with this story is that Israel was created as a result of a world war. And now Israel seems like it could be the catalyst to launch us into another world war. But the reason for that is that old grievances that the First and Second World Wars seemingly quelled were never actually resolved. The proxy war system that we've seen spring up in the Arab world following the fall of the Ottoman Empire and then the world wars and then the Cold War was a direct result of constant foreign intervention in the region, religious and ideological differences, conflicting economic interest, and more. Then there's the issue with the oil. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East is intentionally convoluted and it's constantly shifting. And Israel and Iran, they used to be allies. They were the non-Arabs of the Arab world, so they had some common interests, but over time, things changed a little bit there. And with those changes, the narrative becomes much more complicated. So it's like someone can say that one country did this to the other, and then someone responds, yeah, but they did this. And so there's never any end to it. It just compounds on top of everything, and more war is never going to resolve any of that. So these war hawks, to me, they're embarrassing, they're brutish, which isn't really a sign of intelligence or maturity. And they've obviously got motives that are not in the interest of the American people. Also, just another reminder that we did have an Iran nuclear deal in place, but Trump got rid of it. So Cenk, what are your thoughts here on these war hawks?
Yeah, so first let's handle these idiots. Lindsey Graham still complaining that we got out of Afghanistan. Apparently 20 years was too little in Afghanistan. And then he says, oh, let's help Israel finish the job. You mean 20 years later? Or if apparently, according to you, not enough, 21, 25 years later. They never finish the job. They stay and stay and stay because it's part of feeding the military industrial complex. So yes, Israel obviously did this war. They attacked first. They were very happy to do it. And yes, they're gonna make us pay for it. But the defense contractors are also thrilled. So are the oil companies. Oil's prices shot through the roof. So there's a lot of contributors to politicians that are elated today as we head to another war in the Middle East. Then we go to the idiot Mike Johnson. We have to help Israel defend itself. No, brother, they attacked first. So you could say after the attack, well, even though they're warmongers and they started this war that we didn't want, the American people didn't want at all right, what are we gonna do? We don't want civilians killed in Israel. We'll help them defend themselves, but we gotta get out of there. Okay, I can understand that. But he makes it sound like the attack was a defense. It was not a defense, it was offense. Period, not close, okay? And then finally, to Fetterman. I have to remind you that Fetterman is actually not a Republican. He's theoretically a Democrat. Of all the people I've ever supported in different campaigns, I've never regretted it more than John Fetterman. To be fair to me, it was pre-stroke. I don't know if it was the stroke, I don't know if it was campaign contributions, I don't know if it was tapes, but whatever it is, I got no interest in this warmonger, and I hope he's defeated in humiliating fashion in the next Democratic primary in Pennsylvania. And so, look, I don't think we're gonna have another world war here. I will 222. I don't know, can't promise you anything. I hope not. I'm not sure what Iran's capabilities are. You know, we've had a couple of missiles land in Tel Aviv, but we got America, Israel, Jordan, all knocking down Iranian missiles. So, like, if this war keeps going, Iran will be devastated, yes. I don't know how much Israel will be hurt. I don't know if anyone else will be drawn in. But Trump is a legendary flip-flopper. A little bit later in the show, we're gonna talk about some MAGA guys who are pushing him to get out of there. And if he does, and he goes, well, Israel, now you're on your own, what happens then? And that is a super interesting situation. Now, if you say, oh, there's no way Trump will do that, you sure there's no way that Trump will do anything? I think it's possible that he could do anything in the world. I have no idea what he's gonna do next. Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, it's amazing to me that it always goes back, not amazing, but it's just fun to see that it always goes back to everything that happened today was because of our withdrawal from Afghanistan. So we have to do the we have to undo the damage that happened there. This is all about Joe Biden, everything that happened today. I love when they say that because of course it's ridiculous. And to Yaz's point, I mean, Lindsey Graham's all over the place. He's hypocritical, he doesn't know who he supports. As much as I agree with you on John Fetterman, Cenk, he's been consistent on a lot of this stuff. Lindsey Graham just looks at what way the wind is blowing. When it's blowing toward Donald Trump, he wants to get in that wind. John Fetterman is disturbingly consistent on this, but at least I appreciate the consistency there. The other thing is that Israel, in this case, has lost so much sympathy and credibility on this score. If this happened without Gaza, we might be saying, I get it. I get it. I understand this. The consultations with other countries would have been nice. It was planned well, but they've lost everything. Netanyahu has lost everything in the bigger world. So to do this is both provocative. It is certainly going to draw other countries into this conversation that didn't need to be drawn into it, especially this one. And like you were saying, I think it was you, Cenk, at the beginning here. This is not what what MAGA people wanted. This is not what the people who voted for Donald Trump wanted. As a matter of fact, everyone I spoke to in lines to a person would say to me that I want Donald Trump because I'm tired of the war everywhere. They would blame Biden for Russia attacking Ukraine. They would blame Biden for Netanyahu attacking Gaza in disproportionate retaliation. Then they would say, well, Trump is going to end these wars, as he said, in a couple of days after getting into office. Well, the wars have continued, and now today they've gotten worse. Trump is no closer to ending these wars.
Yeah.
All right, I'll say one last quick thing here. Guys, as far as a wider war is concerned, if this keeps going back and forth, the country that I'm most concerned about is the one we talk about least. It's right next to Israel, Jordan. Jordan is relatively speaking, allies with Israel, but not relatively, like really pretty strong allies with Israel. And they're helping to knock down Iranian missiles. But the people of Jordan hate Israel. So the leadership obviously has the alliance. I understand why they have that alliance. But if this war continues and the Jordanian government continues to aid Israel as it attacks another Middle Eastern country, how long will Jordan's governments remain stable? And that have been historically the most stable government in the Middle East, right? At least among the Arab countries. And so if that stability gets endangered, then we are talking about, now we got some sort of regional conflict that might start to devolve even worse than what we have here. So we got to really look out for that.
Also, the Palestinians hate Jordan because Jordan, on every turn, has refused to allow them to live in Jordan and to take them in as refugees. And that again, the flames burn pretty hard over that issue as well.
Yeah, and the Jordanian people are certainly mixed on it in some ways, but have sympathy for the Palestinians, and they see what Israel's done, et cetera. Last thing is, we've got to note that America First lost today. We don't know if the loss is final, right? But the people who said, hey, let's do America First, let's not do any more wars, were dealt a very severe blow today. So it's be interesting to see what their reaction is going forward. The neocons won, the war hawks won, and we've started another war in the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll tell you MAGA's reaction. Let's start with Super Chat. Michael Catalano wrote in, I love the Anna shirt and 100% going to buy one. So he's talking about you're a vile individual. That's what Anna said in a debate the other day. People seem to like it a lot. You can pre-order it at shoptyt.com. You guys actually asked us to make a shirt out of it, so we did. Shoptyt.com, check that out. Anyway, Michael then continues, but I think you just struck gold, Cenk. Can I get, is America hat to go with it? Okay, I don't know, we'll have to think about that one, see how many pre-orders that one gets. Anyway, Rage Rock for now says, peace through strength, eh? Yeah, no, look, that's one of the reasons that I left the Republican Party a long time ago. Because I thought they were gonna balance budgets, they never balance budgets. Never, ever, 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 right? And I believed in that junk about peace through strength, and it turns out, no, it was war through strength and war through war. And that's all that it was. That's always what Republicans do. Don Whitehead wrote in, no more money to Israel, period, not for weapons, military funding, or any economic reasons. Mark Jacobs said it was inevitable if Kamala was president, she would have done what Israel told her, so a lose-lose situation. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah. She would have told Israel.
Move on.
She would have told Israel, oh, please don't attack Iran. And then Israel would have attacked and she would have said, we're going to defend Israel. So she would have done the same exact thing.
We don't know what she would have done because she lost. So let's leave it at that.
Okay, I'm 100% sure. Okay.
I'm not. And also the lead up to it would have been far different as well. So go ahead.
All right, Anis, we have disagreements on the show. I love it. Anis Bakratarevich. Man, did I butcher that? Sorry, brother. He said, Cenk abi, thank you for sticking up for Muslims and humanizing us. Thank you for saying that, brother. I appreciate it. Simon Moody writes in on YouTube member section. You have to arrest the rioters, but then you must pardon them after they're convicted, because can't miss out on that step, Cenk. Okay, you're right. We should follow the MAGA ideology on that. You know, the guys burning the Waymos and stuff, terrible. Arrest them and then pardon them right afterwards. In fact, Simon, that's so good, I will later steal that and tweet about it. But when you see it, that was you, brother. Okay? Quincy Magoo said, no, wait, Carlton Jones first says, I like TYT, but I find myself watching less. I'm tired of hearing Cenk talk. He talks and rants too much. Chill, dude. Now, fairest show in America, I read that anyway, because I get it, guys. Some people don't like it. You want me to just say, oh, what Israel did is wrong, and hopefully they don't take too much money from us or get too many of our troops killed. I said, okay, I'm kidding around, but I know, different people have different tastes. So Carlton, on the days that I do that and it bothers you, I'm sorry about that, brother. But on the other hand, Quincy Magoo says, Carlton Jones, TYT isn't a place to chill. It's a network filled with passion. If you don't appreciate that, perhaps you can find another podcast. Quincy, I appreciate you sticking up for us. But look, guys, different strokes for different folks. He likes the content. He just sometimes stylistically, people like different things. Don't worry, I got all levels for you guys. Okay, we'll keep it calm, we'll keep it passionate, and that's just authentic because that's who we are. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Michael, and Yaz with you guys. Don't forget, on Saturday, that's tomorrow, we're covering the Trump's birthday party, where he's gonna have tanks and soldiers, you're gonna play with those G.I. Joes. Anyway, it starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. The lead hosts are me and Ben Cohen from Ben and Jerry's. I should buy some Ben and Jerry's tonight. Okay, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Nina Turner, Richard Ojeda, experts on how much all this stuff costs, etc. You're gonna learn a lot about how much money we're wasting, and we're gonna try to give you good information while making fun of them at the same time. All right, so that's right here, of course, on Young Turks on YouTube. Yaz, what's next?
All right, we're gonna continue the second part of that first story. Let's hear what the America First crowd has to say about what happened between Israel and Iran. So as we mentioned earlier, some of the America First Republicans are walking on eggshells as they try to call for peace without actually saying anything bad about Trump and his administration. So Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote this: I'm praying for peace, she says. Peace, that is my official position. Not very strong from her. Charlie Kirk wrote on X, in the hours and days to come, there will be hawks who urge America to increase its involvement in this conflict. We should be deeply skeptical of these arguments. Israel believed their existence was at stake and they acted accordingly and impressively. This is Israel's fight to finish as they see fit, not America's. And other conservatives who are speaking out are a little bit more forceful in doing so. In his newsletter, Tucker Carlson wrote this. He said, on Thursday, Iran's president threatened to destroy any country that eliminates his government's nuclear facilities. Now the world will learn what that looks like. While the American military may not have physically perpetuated the assault, years of funding and sending weapons to Israel, which Donald Trump just bragged about on Truth Social, undeniably placed the United States at the center of last night's event. Washington knew these attacks would happen. They aided Israel in carrying them out. Despite being complicit in the act of war, the president hopes last night's events will help his ongoing nuclear negotiations with Iran. And finally, Sager and Jetty wrote, Trump has now praised Israel's strike, affirmed US material support, and Israeli media is reporting his public opposition was a disinformation campaign to mislead Iran. So in other words, Trump, not Israel, has made a mockery of all of us who wanted to avoid this war. So yeah, he posted that in response to one of his own earlier tweets where he had initially said that Israel has made a mockery out of the United States. And he clarified, no, it wasn't just Israel, it was our own president who did this to us. And Representative Thomas Massey, he posted this in response to someone calling out the Trump administration as Bush 3.0, voted unity party, got uniparty. Okay, so last one, we're gonna end with Jack Posobiec and Matt Walsh. And they're taking this opportunity to argue that the United States should take a page from Israel's playbook. Jack Posobiec asked, when are we going after the cartels like this? And then Matt Walsh responded, very good question. The cartels have been poisoning and murdering Americans for decades. We could kill them all with a well-planned attack. Why haven't we? So I like their response to all of this was just to completely change the subject and talk about something else that is not the possibility of Trump leading this country into a potentially what could be a very large scale war after campaigning repeatedly and calling himself the anti-war president, right? That was one of the big things on his campaigns, several campaigns, that he said, you know what, I'm the anti-war president. I'm gonna end the wars as soon as I get into office, which he hasn't been able to do. And I'm not gonna get us into any new ones. And here we are on the brink of what could be a very large scale conflict. But you know, what's a right winger to do? Marjorie Taylor Greene, disappointing, right? You know, she's known for saying the things that others would never dare to say. Where is she now? She clearly feels some type of way, but now she's too scared to speak up when war is on the actual line. And now we've heard from Trump and Marco Rubio that Trump didn't actually want this attack to go through, but Israel did it anyway. By the way, that makes what Lindsey Graham said in the previous segment all the more ridiculous. None of this makes the United States or this Trump administration look good or strong or competent. And it is weird, you know, like in these discussions between the right wing and the right wing, right? These debates that it's having within itself. We on the left are saying, you know what? You're like, yeah, I kind of agree with these right wingers over here, not those right wingers over there. But that's not even what it's about. And that's something about this particular story that's so interesting is that people are looking at this from an outside perspective because now things could potentially get very real and they're saying, I don't actually want this, right? This is not what I voted for. This is not the administration that I voted for, the people who did actually vote for Trump. So Michael, let's get your thoughts on this.
What's astonishing is that they're happy with everything else, right? Now they come at this like, oh, but now this is ridiculous. This isn't what I asked for.
Yeah, everybody has a line.
Right, somewhere. I guess so. But that bill, that big, beautiful bill, I love everything in that. I love what's happening in cities across America, but come on, you're right. Yes, everybody's got a line. It also from just sort of 1,000 feet away, political perspective, it's interesting to see a fractured Republican Party because generally in contemporary history, you don't see that a lot, but you have seen it in the House of Representatives, and now you're seeing it sort of writ large within the party, that there are these serious divides over serious issues, and that doesn't happen. They usually march in lockstep with one another, and as I guess it was Matthew said, voted unity party, got uniparty, and the truth is that is unusual, and that has worked against Republicans. In the House, it has held up legislation. When this bill comes back from the Senate, it's going to hold it up and maybe make it unsuccessful on the first few tries because of the fact that they're so divided. And then you get to an issue like this, which is a fundamental issue, and you have a president who really isn't in tune with either side. He says the right things in terms of saying he does the sloganeering very well, but he doesn't do the other part because he doesn't understand it. He's about the sloganeering and the America First. It sounds good and it works on the trail, and it did work on the trail at least twice. So it's a fascinating thing to watch within the Republican Party. As for Matt Walsh and Jack Posobiec, I don't agree with these guys very often, but it is, and I understand it's diverting from what the issue at hand is. But if you're saying like we're going to go into another country and bomb their nuclear facilities and keep our people, put our people in danger, well, why not go to a place where they're already in danger and blow the cartels away? It's an interesting take at the very least.
Yeah, I don't love it, but it is definitely interesting. So a couple of things. First, let's start out with our poll on when we do the show live, which is Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you're checking it out every day. We ask you guys to get involved. So in this case, will the America First crowd turn on Trump if the US gets involved in the war? And so 54% so far saying no. And remember, we covered it a little bit earlier, the war hawks, right? So they were always in favor of war. Those are the neocons, and they're also in the Republican Party. So those guys are not going to turn because they've always been in favor of war. So the question is MAGA going to turn? So now let's break that down, right? So first category Republicans is the neocons, they wanted this all along. Second category is Marjorie Taylor Greene category, in my opinion, which is the people who are wishy-washy. So she came on this show and said Israel shouldn't get any more money and that we definitely shouldn't attack Iran, but then Israel does attack Iran, we do help them, and now all of a sudden it's, I'm praying for peace. Okay, thoughts and prayers. What happened? I thought you were gonna be against it. Are you against it? You said MAGA would definitely be against it, so she's on the record on that. Let's see, how she handles this going forward. Apparently a little bit afraid to take on Daddy Trump. Now, the third category are the people who are like, well, I'm stuck here. And this is the most interesting category. Posobiec and Charlie Kirk both referenced their audience and MAGA and America First and how they felt about it. So Charlie Kirk was like, well, you know me, guys, I love Israel, and I think Israel's such an important ally and wonderful in parts that we didn't read you. He had a much longer statement. He's like, but I hear what my audience is saying. Oh, see, I told you, forget the leaders, the actual MAGA voters, a lot of them actually believe the anti-war stuff and are anti-war. And Michael talked to them and they said the craziest things for 1-2 years straight that he went and did all those interviews. But were they actually anti-war? Yes, they were anti-war.
And also unanimously. They differed on other things, Cenk, but they were mine was more than anecdotal. Like I spoke to hundreds and hundreds of people. They all were unanimous about being anti-war.
Yeah, and when I tweet, and I got a lot of followers who are independents and Democrats, but also a lot who are MAGA, right? So when I say anti-war, they're like, yes. When I say Trump shouldn't send in tanks into military and Marines into US cities, they're like, boo! Right? Like they hate that. So they're very clear on what they want and don't want. They're not shy at all, right? And they didn't want this war. That's why Charlie Kirk's like, I'm kind of in the middle. Don't yell at me either side. Posobiec has got a funny thing. And again, the longer version that I watched of his thing, he clearly said, MAGA's against this. This is bad. I'm worried we're gonna get sucked into the war. But in order to split the baby, he's like, but maybe we should do it in Mexico. It's like such a terrible idea for Israel to do this to Iran. And in the same breath, we should do it to Mexico. It's crazy, right?
Well, also like, I know, but when it's a totally different conversation and you're talking about something else. But there is something still compelling to me about that as a juxtaposition to what's going on in the world in terms of what it's doing to America versus just out in the ether.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Not that it's right, but that the America First thinks at least the cartels affect us, whereas Iran doesn't affect us at all. And so what are we doing over there? And then lastly, you have the group that really is against the war, and that's Tucker Carlson and Tom Massey, right? So Tucker Carlson said Trump is complicit. That is heavy language, right? And we shared some of the other things that he said there. And I agree with Tucker on that one. And by the way, I don't know if you noticed, he kind of called Trump dumb. You might have missed it. So when Yaz read it to you there, I'm gonna read it again. This is graphic 9. Despite being complicit in the act of war, the president hopes last night's events will help his ongoing nuclear negotiations with Iran. He's being snide there. I know a lot of people will miss it, but Trump, the story is, and we talked about this a little bit in the first hour, that Trump told Netanyahu not to attack, but then they were in his ear and they're like, oh no, if we attack, we might be more likely to get them to the negotiating table. And apparently Trump believed that enough to get some of our troops out on Thursday, etc., and leave it basically dealer's choice for Israel, right? And then Netanyahu's like, yes, sucker. Right? Because the minute I attack, you're gonna have to defend me, and then you're right in the middle of the war. And that's what Tucker's referring to, like, oh, maybe it'll bring us back to peace negotiations. It's subtle, but he's definitely being sarcastic there about how dumb Trump is and how he got played by Netanyahu.
And also, we shouldn't leave this conversation without mentioning Stephen Witkoff, who is an Upper East Side real estate executive, is the person in the Middle East representing the United States in all of these dealings. And that, when you talk about only the best people, which Trump has said over and over again, that's not who you want over there right now dealing with this. These are unserious people, and these are serious events that are happening.
Yeah, and lastly, lastly for me is Massey is truly anti-war. So I give Massey credit. And today, America First crowd lost. They lost today. So maybe they come back, maybe they convince Trump, maybe Trump flip-flops. And if he does it in the middle of a war, it'll be super interesting to see, right? But MAGA's hurt, dog. Don't ask them if they're all right, because they took a heavy blow from the neocons today. Yes.
Yeah, like Trump, he has to be the strong man because he would lose whatever is left of his base if he loses that image. So as much as the right is struggling with their messaging here, Trump is too, right? He has to be anti-war, but he also has to maintain this facade that he's actually in control of Israel and Netanyahu. But he especially can't be duped by Israel after he gave Biden such a hard time about being the submissive one in the US-Israel relationship. And then on top of that, there's also the relationship between Trump and Putin that Trump is worried about rocking and he doesn't want to mess with any of that. But I mean, like Cenk, you asked kind of rhetorically there, like, what are we doing over there? But I do wonder if people really understand what's going on between both Israel and Iran, and why are we even involved? With all of these wars that we see around the world, but especially in the Middle East, there's always a political angle and then an ideological angle. And typically the ideological angle is what is used to sell the public on it and to garner support from the public. But there's always an underlying political or economic angle that is actually driving different countries to get involved in certain conflicts. And with the United States, we know that we usually don't really get involved in anything unless there's something in it for us. So what is in it for us here as far as the US and Iran goes? So these are all things that we should be thinking about. These are the conversations we should be having. And on the right especially, they seem to have kind of like gotten away from what it is that what their goals are here. They want to be anti-war, but then they still have people within their coalition who are actively pushing for this war with Iran because they have to back up Israel. And what's happening in the Middle East right now, and even with Russia, something we're seeing that we haven't really seen in a while, in a few decades, I would say, is that there is an actual ideological war that is happening, right? There are people who are waging war, leaders who are waging war in other nations on ideological bases. And that's interesting because people really have a hard time picking a side whenever it's rooted in something like religion or divine right and that type of thing. So very interesting.
Yep. All right. When we come back, a sheriff threatens to murder protesters because free speech. We'll be back. All right, back on the social break here. Diego Shomets, who's a YouTube member, said, thank you guys for working around the clock to contextualize everything. Anna called it yesterday, so when I saw the headline about Iran, I wasn't shocked. Thanks for saying that, we appreciate it. We do work hard to try to get the stories right for you guys. And oftentimes we do predictions just to show you that there's patterns, right? And you could see certain things coming. So later when Jake Tapper writes a book about it and says nobody could have seen it coming, you can show him the video, okay? So now let's go to our own members. Actually, before we do that, look, I'm on the warpath on Shopify. I really, because we use them and we use them for shoptyt.com. And then they became a sponsor of ours, which I like because I'm already happy with them. So if you're gonna set up a shop or do anything like that, make sure you do it through Shopify and do it now because you're gonna get a $1 per month trial. And you go through and you do that by going to shopify.com/TYT, shopify.com/TYT. And then, speaking of shop, if you're on Shop TYT, you can pre-order your Vile Individual. That's Anna line that you guys loved, and a lot of people are pre-ordering those, and they might get sold out. You never know. It might be time to panic at shoptyt.com. All right, now our members. Kelly K says, Congress has an approval rating in the single digits. Does that mean other countries should start bombing the US to liberate it? What stupid logic. This has been a hell of a Friday the 13th. Yeah, that's a good point. Because people really do say that, the Iranian regime is unpopular, so Iran would love it if you bombed them. No, they wouldn't. No one likes being bombed. Lou B says, Trump's such a wuss. At least Obama told Bibi, knock it off. Profiles and courage, he adds. Irish Fiddle Dragon says, Cenk, I can't tell you how happy that I am that you're back. It's been a hell of a week, brother. You've been missed. Thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. All right. Boring. What am I gonna do with you? Okay, Chuck Westworld says, I'm really sick and tired of Israel's BS. It's been decades of this garbage. Trillions flushed down the toilet, countless lives lost. No taxpaying American should want to continue to pay for this charade. Navinik says, great point, Cenk. $100 gift card. I appreciate you, brother, but I can't give it to myself. Words in the Absurd says, what happened? I thought the Abraham Accords were bringing in a new era of peace in the Middle East. Yeah, good question.
That's a good point.
Yeah, Hypocritus Noah writes in, what is Iran supposed to do? Doesn't Iran have a right to defend itself? Aren't the Iranian people going to want security and possibly vengeance or blood? Yeah, I hope not, but yeah, that's usually how it works. Back on TYT, Cenk, Michael, and Yaz with you guys, and Tony Safoyan. Tony, thanks for hitting that join button and becoming a TYT member. Yaz, what's next?
All right, we have protests. Let's roll the tape.
If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
With anti-ICE and anti-Trump protests planned across the country over the weekend, law enforcement and Republican leadership is getting ahead of any potential violence and rioting by issuing threats directly to the American people. Republicans are actively pushing the narrative that protesters in Los Angeles were violent, dangerous, and generally disruptive before the president unleashed the National Guard and US Marines on them. But meanwhile, Trump plans to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the US Army with a military parade in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, which just so happens to coincide with his birthday. How nice for him. However, in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., protests are being planned against Trump and his administration. There will be roughly 1,500 No Kings rallies across the country tomorrow, as well as several Kick Out the Clowns rallies. When asked about the planned rallies, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt did little to distinguish between a protester and a violent criminal.
I think that those images of foreign flags being waved with by illegal criminals and by violent rioters in the face of cars blowing up and of flames in the city. I have photos of that here to show you with this violence and destruction that occurred is an image that Governor Gavin Newsom owns.
But to get ahead of these protests, Republican officials and law enforcement agents are issuing threats. Trump himself had this to say: if there's any protester that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. I haven't even heard about a protest, but this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force. The following day, Leavitt did clarify Trump's statement, saying that Trump supports peaceful protests, even though in his statement, he never specified that only violent protesters would be met with very big force. But then we have statements like this one from Wayne Ivey, the sheriff from Brevard County, Florida. Take a look.
If you resist lawful orders, you're going to jail. Let me be very clear about that. If you block an intersection or a roadway in Brevard County, you are going to jail. If you flee arrest, you're going to go to jail tired, because we are going to run you down and put you in jail. If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over and dragged across the street. If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here. If you throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
All right, then we have Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who I had actually forgotten is still the governor of Florida, but he also is now encouraging violence against his own constituents.
And we also have a policy that if you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck and let the mob grab you out of your car and drag you through the street. You have a right to defend yourself in Florida.
All right, well, meanwhile, here in Texas, Republican Governor Greg Abbott has announced that he has ordered the deployment of 5,000 Texas National Guard troops, as well as 2,000 state police to assist local law enforcement tomorrow, specifically in the Democratic cities where no Kings protests are planned. That's right here in Houston, also Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. Protests have already begun in Texas, where police use chemical irritants against protesters in Dallas and Austin. In San Antonio, near the Alamo, National Guard members were spotted at a protest Wednesday. So I know you guys are going to be covering the birthday parade tomorrow, Cenk, but here's a fun fact. $16 million is expected to be spent just on repairing the roads of Washington, D.C. after the military tanks tear up the roads. The tanks don't need to drive on these roads because all of this is so unnecessary. But Trump is insisting that this happens, knowing that the roads will need millions of dollars worth of repairs afterward. But what does he care? It's not his money. I don't know. Cenk, is this the way that you would expect law enforcement to serve and protect the American people?
No. So you're right. We're covering it. Young Turks on YouTube, 6:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Me and Ben Cohen of Ben and Jerry's. Check out that military parade and Trump's birthday party, and you'll get a lot of good facts out of there too. Now on this story, how it started, freedom of speech is the most important right there is. We have to let people say terrible things on Twitter. We have to, freedom of speech. How it's going. You protest Trump, we'll put you graveyard dead. I think something got lost in the translation. Now I get it, he said if you cause violence or you point a gun, etc. But obviously he was doing a preemptive strike on his own citizens here, saying if you do anything slightly wrong in your protest of Donald Trump, we will use excessive and outrageous force against you. And then DeSantis doubles down with, no, you're not getting it. If you protest Trump or any Republicans in the state of Florida, we already passed a bill saying that drivers are allowed to kill you. So, I mean, if you're MAGA, you're like, oh yeah, of course, man, you surround your car, you gotta murder them, you run them over, man, right? How about if it was January 6th? And the January 6th crowd was around a car. Were they allowed to just run over all the MAGA guys? Who cares? Just run them all over. Who cares? They're just, hey there, bro, what are you doing? And it's at the Capitol and they're breaking in and they're causing violence and they're attacking cops. Run them all over, right? Oh, two different standards for different people. Interesting. Michael.
Well, the thing I'm angriest about is the Brevard County sheriff who ended his sentence with "at." You can't do that. We can tell you where you can pick up your remains at. It's just not. That's not how you construct a sentence in English. That said, it is horrendous that the stand your ground that has been poisoning Florida for so long is extending now in a preemptive way to a problem that doesn't exist. This is a solution in search of a problem, absolutely. Catherine Levitt was saying that Gavin Newsom owns this. Well, if he owns this, he owns a massive peaceful rally at which, unfortunately, some cars were burnt. It's satirizing what happened here in California. It's satirizing what protest is. And as Cenk, you said so perfectly, not much more needs to be said except for that correction of his sentence structure. That the only thing that matters here is that this is free speech, and this is what free speech looks like. And they want to tell you what free speech looks like, and that implicitly is not free speech.
Yeah, Michael, and I think Gavin Newsom actually said something to that effect, that Trump is, again, just creating a problem, making it seem so much worse than it actually is, and then solving it. And he said something like, Trump really just wants to be a Marvel hero, and so he creates the problem first. He has to be the villain first,
right?
And then he gets to sweep in as the hero.
Yes, do you want to see him in a cape and a tight suit?
I don't. Okay. No part of me wants to. I mean, like maybe like a little bit of just like curiosity, but like, oh, I hate the mental image that's in my head right now, Michael.
I'm so sorry.
You.
Apologies.
Orange Man, or maybe Orange Crush.
Orange Crush. Okay. Now, Cenk's going to be so proud of that. That's annoying because he's going to talk about it a lot. You love it, don't you?
Okay. I don't even know what you're talking about. I already forgot it. All right. Okay. All right, guys. In the bonus episode for the members, 2 fights, Bernie versus Trump's Treasury Secretary, you're gonna love that one, and Jon Stewart versus ABC News. Ooh, interesting. Good time to join, hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join, we'll take it either way, and we'll see you there.